We're live, or maybe you're watching this later in a recording. Well, today I have a kind of a cheeky question for you. My question is, do you have cockroaches? And what I've found, and I have three stories to share with you about this today. What I've found in the last year, I've had three different business leaders talking to me about what happens when key leaders have left their companies. Either they've voluntarily quit or they've been let go for performance issues. Key leaders leaving your company is an opportunity, a huge opportunity for some culture diagnostics. And you may have heard me talk about this before. I am not a big fan of culture surveys. I find that they are very often inaccurate, overlook real problems, or create the illusion of problems in your culture for reasons I won't get into right now. And I will say that when a key leader leaves your company, that really is a profound opportunity for some culture diagnostics. So, um, one of the things that I've heard people say is, "Oh, thank goodness they're gone." Right? Somebody has left either voluntarily or they've been removed, and there's kind of a sigh of relief. And that sigh of relief makes sense if somebody has been not performing or if they've been toxic to your culture. That sense of relief makes sense. And I'm going to say not so fast, because replacing that person may solve some piece of the issue. And there are we've really found again and again, we have found there are often culture problems that that person may have been hiding, or that at the very least the removal of that person provides an opportunity for you to have a unique insight into how is your culture operating. I think of it kind of like moving the refrigerator. Every time you remove the refrigerator, you have a diagnostic opportunity in your kitchen, and you expect to find some dust and maybe a little bit of kind of dried up spills underneath your refrigerator if you don't move your refrigerator frequently. What you really don't want to find under your refrigerator, in the void where your refrigerator used to be. You don't want to find dead mice, and you don't want to find live cockroaches. The kinds of problems that are not just uh, because of the refrigerator itself, but the kinds of problems that that moving the refrigerator reveals, and that in turn reveal a more systemic problem overall. So I'm going to tell you three quick stories here to help you see how you might use somebody leaving as a diagnostic opportunity. So in the first company that I'll tell you about, the CFO left, and they left a mess in the books. The entire kind of financial health of the business was left in question because there was so much questionable going on inside the files that got a deeper look once the CFO had gone. Now here's the kicker, and here's where uh, the CFO leaving provided a diagnostic opportunity of the culture in general. The CFO left, there was a mess, and the controller had known for 2 years that there was a serious problem the uh, in the files of the CFO. There was a serious problem going on. I won't go into the nature of those problems. I will say simply that the controller feared for her job. And so one of the culture problems that this reveals is that the controller had felt completely isolated. And this is really, in some ways, it's a silo problem that's been revealed here, is that the controller not only feared for her job, that's the kind of proximal reason for the controller not sharing what she knew that was going on that was problematic. But she was also isolated in the company. There was the CFO, there was the controller, there was a couple of other people in the financial department of this company, and that was it. The controller felt no connection to anybody in any other department, and that is a culture issue. If somebody is isolated, only in their own department, then that leads to all of the problems of siloing, including the fact that profound problems that threatened the welfare of the company went unaddressed, even remained in the dark. So that's story number one. And so when somebody leaves, this problem emerged. Story number two, the COO leaves. This chief operating officer left and turned out to have been not only they were asked to leave because they weren't advancing the efficiency and effectiveness of the company at the pace that the CEO had wanted, was given opportunities to improve his performance, and it just didn't come up. His performance just didn't advance at the pace that the CEO had required, and so he was asked to leave. And what was revealed was that not only was this COO not advancing the efficiency and effectiveness of the company, of the operations within the company, but that he was actively a bottleneck in getting problems solved. So various people inside the company were coming to him and saying, here is a problem in operations that we need solved. And he would say, I'm working on it. And so there was no sharing of the information about these problems that other people inside operations had identified. So the CEO didn't even know about these problems, didn't know that the COO had been saying for a year about, say, problem X. Yes, I'm working on it. I'm working on it, repeatedly saying I'm working on it. And one of the culture problems that arises here, well, there are a couple. One is, in a really healthy culture, nobody sits for I'm working on it. The response to I'm working on it would be, in a really healthy culture, I'm so glad to hear it. When can I see what? Give me a schedule. Give me some benchmarks. What are the dates by which I will see what changes? It's not a pushy conversation. It's a conversation of gaining clarity and of expectation setting. So there's one problem in the culture, is that there simply wasn't a culture of accountability. And I say here, a culture of accountability, not as are we holding him accountable, but do we even have metrics? Are we expecting from one another, asking from one another metrics to be accountable to? So there's one piece of where the culture there was had some problems, but also there was a sense of I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. And so a culture distinction inside your company between throwing somebody under the bus and being transparent about the problems that are arising because of somebody's performance, or the problems that aren't being addressed because of somebody's performance, and our responsibilities to the well-being of the company. And so there are ways that are very honorable of giving people opportunities to perform, and then also not holding back information that is critical to the well-being of the company and the future performance of the company, and frankly, staying relevant in the market so that some other competitor doesn't come and steamroll over you while these problems persist. So there's my second story, and my third and last story of how a key leader leaving can be an incredible diagnostic opportunity for you of your culture, is a story of a company where a VP left, and turned out that this VP was covering for terrible behavior on the part of one of the people who reported to him. And so behaviors that demeaned others, behaviors that made it an unpleasant place to work, behaviors that drove other employees away. And at this time, when it's really an employee's market, and I don't have to tell you that it is hard to find and fill positions right now. Every single employee who is valuable in your company is practically irreplaceable right now. And so these behaviors were not only unpleasant, but they are a threat to the well-being of the company. And this VP insulated this person who reported to him from the reality of the impact of their behavior, did not require them to resolve or change the behavior. In fact, smoothed over some of the ruffled feathers that they were creating instead of even requiring that that person go and handle the conflict and behave like a grown-up. So this VP was so effective at smoothing things over in a cosmetic kind of way and hiding the behavioral problems that no other leaders in the company were aware until that VP left, and suddenly all of the pent up frustration and anger and displeasure, all of that kind of bubbled to the surface. And so here are three stories that show that removing a key leader can be like pulling the refrigerator out from the kitchen and revealing not only dust and some old dried up spills, right? A little bit of dirt and grime is to be expected when you move the refrigerator. But if you remove the refrigerator and you're finding cockroaches, if you're finding dead mice, then you have a culture problem. So use the leaving, whether it's by their choice or by yours, the leaving of key leaders as that diagnostic opportunity. And when you find these cockroaches, when you find these mice, don't think of them as the temptation may be. Don't think of them as solved because that person has been removed and that person will be replaced. But notice the structural problems within that have allowed the refrigerator to hide those cockroaches and, in fact, perhaps allow those cockroaches to thrive. So those are my thoughts for you today. Of course, it's important also to figure out what's under the fridge, even if you're not losing a key leader. But to be able to diagnose, to be able to be aware if there are troubles brewing, even without removing the refrigerator. So that's a topic for another day. How do you diagnose your culture without one of these traumatic events of losing a key leader? Really appreciate your hanging out with me today to share some perspective and to gain an opportunity to have greater transparency and real diagnostic power in your company. Have a great day.